years with good quality sleep. Also talk about what you can do, so tips as to how to improve your sleep. Next. So sleep and sleep requirements. First of all, can everybody see this? You can see it, perfect. Next. Is it full apart? Okay, so normal human sleep, and I think I have shut this off, it's back on. I'll hold it. Normal human sleep is not one steady state. So when we go to sleep, we don't just go into like a limbo state. We actually cycle through different levels of sleep. And sleep is divided into non-REM and REM sleep. REM sleep stands for rapid eye movement sleep, and that's the sleep stage that you dream in. And we need about 25% of our total sleep time, to be in REM sleep. Non-REM sleep is subdivided into stage 1, 2, and 3. Stage 1 is very, very light sleep. It's transitional sleep. So when you're dozing off at night, you might even think you're awake. Like 50% of us think that we're awake when we're in stage 1 sleep because it's a very light sleep, but it is sleep already. And then we spend about maybe 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 7 minutes in stage 1, very light sleep. And then we go into a slightly deeper sleep. If we're undisturbed, we'll go into a slightly deeper sleep, which is stage 2 sleep. That's non-REM stage 2, which is still considered a light sleep stage, but a little bit deeper. And most of us think that we're asleep at that point. And then, after about half an hour or so, we'll go into slow wave sleep, or stage 3 non-REM sleep. So stage 3 non-REM sleep is also called deep sleep, it's called restorative sleep, it's called slow wave sleep. Children have a ton, they have up to 50% of deep restorative sleep. And most unfortunately, as we get older, that deep restorative sleep just normally physiologically decreases and gets replaced with lighter sleep. So as adults and as we get older, we tend to have more sleep fragmentation because we spend more time in the lighter sleep stages, whereas children have a lot of slow wave deep sleep, and so they sleep more soundly. Okay, just 1 second. Sleep architecture. So what is sleep architecture? Sleep architecture is the term that we use to describe the cycling of non-REM sleep, stage 1, 2, 3, and REM sleep. Okay, next. So this graph, if you could see it, this graph on the x-axis, this is time. This is 11 o'clock at night, the person went to bed. This is 7 o'clock in the morning when the person woke up. And on the y-axis, over here, we have different levels of alertness and sleep. So here's awake, here's REM sleep. These red bars, represent REM sleep. Non-REM stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So with this hypnogram, we call it a hypnogram, which represents sleep architecture, or the cycling of non-REM REM sleep throughout the course of the night. So with this hypnogram, you can see at the beginning of the night, the person's awake, and then they went into the light sleep stage. It took them about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe even 17 minutes or so. They went to stage 1, spent a few minutes only in stage 1, then went into stage 2, still a light sleep stage, and then finally, after maybe 5-10 minutes, went into stage 3 over here. So this is a deep restorative sleep, and if you look across the night, and this is a very important factor, if you look across the night, you could see the concentration or the duration of time of slow wave sleep is concentrated in the beginning of the night. This next cycle of non-REM and then REM, this next cycle of slow wave sleep is shorter and shorter and shortest towards the morning. So you get your deep restorative sleep towards the beginning of the night. Very important for children. They need to go to bed at a reasonable time because they miss this. That sleep deprivation interferes with slow wave sleep. And in slow wave sleep, growth hormone is secreted. So it's like what your parents may have told you or your grandparents may have told you, go to bed early. When you go to bed on time, you'll grow tall. It's true. The growth hormone for children is secreted during slow wave sleep. Okay, so as the night goes on, you have this cycling, slow wave sleep here, then you go back up into non-REM stage 2, and now you've had your first REM period, this red bar here, and that occurs around 90 to 120 minutes after you fall asleep, and that's very normal. So between an hour and a half to 2 hours, you're going to hit your first REM period. And then you're going to go back down into like stage 2, and then a little slow wave, then stage 2, and then REM, and then you woke up for a minute or two, then you went back to stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, or slow wave sleep, and then you cycle again. Each one of these cycles is between 90 and 120 minutes, and it depends on you. So your cycle may be 90 minutes, your cycle may be 120 minutes, and your cycle might be 88 minutes. So it's variable, but that's the timing, 90 to 120 minutes. And what I want you to notice about this is that as the night progresses, the duration of REM sleep increases. So we tend to have the most REM sleep concentrated towards the morning. And both slow wave sleep and REM sleep are very important for memory, concentration, and just cognitive ability. So you don't want to wake up too early, and you don't want to go to bed too late, because you need the slow wave and you need the REM sleep. Okay, next. Okay, so this slide just says how many hours do you need to sleep? So, sometimes when I give a talk, I'll ask a show of hands. So let me block this. Let me ask a show of hands. How many hours do you think an adult needs to sleep?
7 or 8.
7 or 8? 7 or 8?
6.
6? 5? It's an auction. 4. So the correct answer is the amount that allows you to wake up feeling rested and refreshed and not sleepy during the day. That's the correct answer. But the majority of the time you need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep as an adult. Some people only need 6. They're shorter sleepers. There are some people that only need 5 hours of sleep, but that's like, on the outskirts of the bell-shaped curve of normal variation. Some people need 9 to 10 hours. The 10 hours is also on the outskirts of the bell-shaped curve. But most adults need about 7 to 9. But the true answer is the amount of hours that allows you to wake up feeling rested and refreshed. Okay, so just to give you an idea about ages, so babies, 0 to 12 months, need between 12 and 17 hours of total sleep time. So that's with babies. Toddlers and children, prepubescent children, need between 9 hours and 15 hours of sleep. And so everybody sort of knows like the little toddlers need a lot of hours, so that's like 11 to 15. The 3 to 5-year-old children need between 10 and 13 hours of sleep. I don't think we get that in our society for the little ones. And the 5 to 12-year-olds, they need 9 to 11 hours. They may not get it, but I think we shortchange our children. This group, the adolescent group, needs 8 to 10 hours. And if any of you have adolescents at home, high school students, they do not get that. They do not get that. They have early wake time, early school start times, and unfortunately they have lots of homework, lots of activities. So the adolescents, the high school students, when they come home, they actually don't have enough time to do everything that they're supposed to do, and school starts too early. There's a whole movement in the US which is dealing with lobbying to start schools later for the adolescents. The young children, prepubescent children, they can start school at 7:30 or 8 because they get up earlier. But the adolescents, during puberty, they have hormonal shifts, and they have what's called a circadian rhythm shift, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. But their body clock, their sleep-wake cycle, is delayed a little bit by a few hours during puberty and during adolescence. So they actually have a hard time physiologically going to bed earlier. So when they were 9 years old, they may have gone to bed at 9 o'clock. But when they're 14, they can't go to bed at 9 o'clock. Their body won't let them. So they want to stay up till 11 or 12, but they want to sleep in till like 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock, but they can't because they have to get up at 5:45 to catch the school bus. So it's a real problem for the adolescents. And it's finally being recognized, and hopefully something will be changed in the next few years about that. Adults over here, on average, 7 to 9 hours. Okay, next. So how much sleep is too little? So this slide is a really good slide. And it says that even cutting back 2 hours of sleep per night causes a sleep debt. And cutting back 2 hours per night for 1 week causes daytime sleepiness and sleep deprivation equivalent to staying awake for greater than 24 hours. So we have all stayed up, we've pulled an all-nighter because of whatever circumstances, and you know how bad you feel that next day. You actually could sometimes feel sort of sick. You're nauseous, your appetite's off, you're like dragging, you can't think straight. So that's what happens when you're awake all night. You pulled a 24, you pulled an all-nighter. But if you are cutting back by 2 hours every night, which doesn't sound like that bad, by the time you've done it for a week, you are as compromised as you would have been if you had been up all night. And that's very, very important because we're in Long Island, we drive, we work, and so by Friday, Friday evening when you're coming home, you're definitely at least five nights sleep deprived. And so you could crash the car. There are a lot of accidents because people fall asleep driving. So the other very important point on this slide is that staying up for 24 hours, so if you have to stay up for 24 hours, you're going to be as impaired with coordination, concentration, and reaction time as if though you were legally drunk. And I don't think people realize that. They sort of take it for granted, I could push through it, I could drive, but you are as compromised as someone that's legally drunk. We could switch this slide. And there's actually a law about driving while you are too sleep deprived. You could actually be, if God forbid there's an accident and someone dies, you could be liable for manslaughter. Okay, so what time do we need to go to sleep? So that sort of depends. That depends on whether you're a morning lark or you're a night owl. And all of us have a little bit of a variation as to what time we want to go to bed. The morning larks want to go to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30. They wake up. They wake up spontaneously at the crack of dawn, or 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock. They're full of energy in the morning. They're ready to go. That's their best time of day, the morning. But the night owls, they want to go to bed later. They just can't fall asleep too early. So they want to stay up till 11 o'clock or midnight. And after midnight, more or less, they're sort of ready to fall asleep. But they don't want to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's like the brutal time for a night owl. They want to sleep in till 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock. And if they are allowed to stick to their schedule, like if they have a job or their life situation is such that they could sleep from midnight till 10, or sleep from 2 to 10, perfect. We'd never see them because they would feel functional, they would feel rested because they're sleeping according to their body rhythm. But a lot of times the night owls have trouble, and they complain of insomnia, and they have trouble getting up in the morning to get to work on time. If they had a different job, like let's say if you're an artist, if you're a musician, musicians tend to be night owls, by the way, but the perfect job for a musician is, like working in a nightclub or so, because they have late hours and they sleep in the morning, no problem, never see them. Morning larks tend not to have trouble in our society because jobs start at 8 o'clock, they have no trouble getting up early, and they're always on time. Okay. This is genetically predetermined, so it is what it is. You could switch it around a little bit, but you can't totally change it. Thanks. Okay, so timing of sleep. So if you're a morning lark or you're a night owl, it's very important to sleep during your time. That would be ideal. Sometimes circumstances don't allow that and you have to switch. It is possible to switch, but you do have to work at it. And we'll talk about how to work at it. But if you could sleep at regular times and especially wake up the same time each morning, then your sleep quality will be the best. Because the wake time is what drives your circadian rhythm. It's not so much the bedtime, it's when you get up. So if you're having trouble sleeping, if you have insomnia, if you have a circadian rhythm disorder, if you're too much of a night owl and you have to get up all the time in the morning, you can't just get up at 5:30 or 6 o'clock Monday through Friday and then on Saturday, Sunday sleep until 10. It's going to make you jet lagged. It's going to just make you sleep in later on Saturday, go to bed later on Saturday night because you've slept in, and then on Sunday you'll sleep in even later by an hour usually, and then you'll have terrible trouble getting to bed on time on Sunday night to be able to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning. You sort of jet lag yourself, not on purpose, but that's what it does to our body. So shifting our bedtimes and rise times destabilizes our circadian rhythm and can result in initial insomnia. By sleeping in for a few hours, we delay our drive to fall asleep at night. That's very, very important. Okay, next. So I'm going to talk about circadian rhythms. And circadian rhythms are intrinsic biological rhythms. We all have circadian rhythms, which we can adjust, we can manipulate to some degree, but they are inherent in our systems. And so some examples of circadian rhythms are, of course, sleep-wake, some other functions such as hormone release. So for example, cortisol, you know, the stress hormone, cortisol level drops in the evening and it's very low till about around 3 o'clock in the morning, and then cortisol rises normally, and it allows us to wake up naturally. So in the morning, our cortisol level is supposed to be high, and high cortisol wakes us up. Our temperature curve. So our body temperature curve, what happens is it's highest in the morning and then it drops, and at night it has to drop by at least half a degree. And that drop in your temperature actually makes you drowsy and sleepy. So at night, the decrease in the cortisol, the decrease in the temperature allow you to feel sleepy and fall asleep more easily. And in the morning, that rise in the cortisol and the rise in the temperature allows you to wake up more naturally or more easily. So other hormones, there's thyroid hormone, there are appetite stimulating and suppressing hormones. All of these are in a 24-hour cycle, circa for approximate DM for a day. So all of these circadian rhythms occur on an approximate 24-hour cycle. Okay, next. So this slide, what I want you to know about this slide is that there are two mechanisms that control sleep, when you want to fall asleep and when you want to wake up. The first one is the circadian rhythm. So as the night comes on, evening falls, our bodies want to go to sleep. So there's a circadian or a night-day kind of periodicity to it, and as the sun rises, we want to wake up. And that is a circadian process. It's a clock, like an internal clock process. Then there's the other process, which is process S, which means sleep deprivation. So you become more sleepy. This is so simple, but it's so common sense. I was once quoted in the newspaper as saying, when you are sleep deprived, you become more sleepy. I thought I was going to die. It's like something better. But if you are sleep deprived, that's the bottom line. That's process S. The more sleep deprived you are, the more sleepy you are. So if you slept 8 hours in a night, at 3 o'clock the next afternoon, you're not really going to be sleepy because you're sleep deprived, but you will have a little circadian dip. We all have a little dip around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But if you only slept 3 hours because of something the night before, then at 3 o'clock the following afternoon, on top of that little circadian dip, you're going to be very sleepy because you have that added pressure of sleep deprivation. So sleep S, process S is sleep-wake restorative process. It balances the sleep and wakefulness and is directly linked to how much you have already slept. And then circadian biological clock is process C. So that's like an internal body, a body clock that tells you whether you want to go to bed or whether you want to go to sleep or you want to stay awake, depending on the time of the day. So there's a little part in the brain in the hypothalamus called the SCN, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So it's a little pacemaker for sleep and wake. Our hearts have a pacemaker, the SA node, sinoatrial node, and that regulates the beating of our heart, how fast it beats, how regularly it beats. And in the brain, there's a part of the brain, very small nucleus, called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, that regulates when we want to go to sleep and when we want to wake up. It's an internal mechanism, and if it cycles correctly, if it all works correctly, we have an approximate 24-hour sleep-wake rhythm. The truth of the matter is that our sleep-wake cycle, and I don't know why, but our sleep-wake cycle is a little bit longer than 24 hours, just a little bit longer. So there have been experiments that have been done where people were put in total isolation, so they didn't know whether it was light or dark outside. And that circadian clock, the SCN, still works, but it causes progressive phase delay. So every day, the individuals that were like, time isolation in a cave, let's say, it wasn't a cave, it just didn't have any light exposure from the outside. So every day, those individuals would go to bed an hour later and wake up an hour earlier. And over a period, of like 24 days, they shifted entirely around the clock. So we need to constantly reinforce our circadian rhythm by waking up early or on time or at the same time every single morning and exposing ourselves to light. Very important, light at that suprachiasmatic nucleus. Next. So this is just a graph of when we feel the most alert and when we feel the sleepiest, based on our circadian rhythm, based on that suprachiasmatic nucleus and what it tells us to feel. So on this graph, this is the time of day. This is 9 o'clock in the morning. This is noon, 6 o'clock in the evening, midnight, 6 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. And this is high alertness, and down here is low alertness. And so what happens, sure, 9 o'clock in the morning, you woke up, hopefully you slept well, you're alert, you're up here. Then you have that mid-afternoon dip, so around 3 o'clock, it's between 2 and 4, but around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we all get a little bit drowsy. That's when we reach for a cup of coffee or a candy bar or something to keep us going. And then we have another surge of wakefulness. This is around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and then you can see the alertness goes down, the wakefulness goes down, we start getting more sleepy, and then we are sleepiest at around 3 o'clock in the morning. So if anybody ever had to work nights, they'll notice that 3 o'clock in the morning is the killing hour. And that's when you actually sort of start getting sick. Like you feel you have chills, you feel like weird, and you really, really want to go to sleep. So that is when our body wants to sleep the most. And that's around 3 o'clock in the morning. And then the body temperature starts going up, the cortisol starts going up, and our level of alertness starts going up, and we're back to 9 o'clock. Okay, so if we interfere with these two processes, like, process S and process C, the circadian one and the sleep deprivation one, what happens? You get really sleepy. You just get really sleepy. And at around 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you get more sleepy than you would have if you had not been sleep deprived. Now, there are different ways to interfere with these processes. One is super easy, and that's just sleep deprive yourself, but the other one is a little more complicated, and that is with shift work. It's with rotating schedules. It's with time zone changes, with travel. So if anyone has traveled and you've crossed more than 2 time zones, you'll know that it's difficult to fall asleep at the correct time, and it's difficult to wake up at the correct time. And that's because your circadian rhythm, that process C, is off balance. So you get sleepy at the wrong time, and it takes it takes 1 day to adjust to a 2-hour time zone change. So if you go to London, which is 5-hour time zone change, it's going to take you at least 2.5 days to adjust. If you go to Europe, it's going to take you 6 hours, like Germany. It'll take you 3 days. If you go to India, I think it's about 12 hours. It's going to take you 6 days to adjust. So if you go to India or if you go to the Far East and there's a big time zone change, don't schedule your vacation for a week. Like schedule it for 3 weeks or a month, because otherwise you'll be totally discombobulated when you get there for your entire stay, and then you come back and do something, the jet lag again. Okay. So this is how we can manipulate our circadian rhythm with light, with activity, and with melatonin. So I mentioned that the suprachiasmatic nucleus is very sensitive to light. If we are exposed to bright light, it suppresses melatonin release. The suprachiasmatic nucleus controls the hypothalamus, and it controls the pineal gland's production of melatonin. Our bodies produce melatonin. It's a normal function. And melatonin levels rise in the evening, and that higher melatonin level makes us drowsy, helps us fall asleep, and then as we are waking up in the morning, the melatonin levels are dropping. So there are multiple things going on to help us sleep and help us wake up. If we expose ourselves at night to bright light, we're sitting under fluorescents, LEDs, bright light, we are suppressing our melatonin, and we're making it harder for ourselves to fall asleep. And blue light is even worse. All the electronics and the blue light, that specifically suppresses melatonin. So light, you have to be very careful with light, especially if you have trouble sleeping. Activity. So if you do have aerobic activity, you're jogging or you're exercising on the treadmill or whatever before bedtime, that's not a good idea. You're raising your core body temperature. That's going to make it harder to fall asleep. Plus, you're getting all this adrenaline, which also is going to keep you awake. But you could use this to change your schedule. You could use this to make yourself more alert at times that you don't want, that you are dying to fall asleep. So you could use activity, you could use light, and you could also use external melatonin. So like over the counter. Not that I'm going to say it's good or bad, but you could if you need to change your circadian rhythm. Okay, next one. Okay, next one. All right. So sleep disruptors. That was normal sleep. That's how it works. Very simplified, but that's pretty much what happens. How do we mess up our sleep? What are we doing? So we can do things from our environment. So you could relocate and you could buy a house close to a fire station. You could relocate and those new buildings that they're building right by the train station? I wouldn't live there. You're going to hear that 4 o'clock train, the 4:45, the 5:10. So you could, environmental, it's like what's around us that is noisy or bright that will interfere with our sleep. Behavioral, that's what we do to mess up our sleep. So, exercising close to bedtime, watching horror films, these kinds of things. Sleep disorders, these are things that we already have. So it could be something like sleep apnea, or it could be periodic limb movements, and stress. I'm going to talk about a little bit. So, of course, I think everybody has stress to one degree or another. Okay, next. Okay, so some examples of environmental causes of poor sleep. I mentioned the noise, but I mentioned the train, but we've got fire stations, we've got airports. So people that live near airports have a hard time. There are some rules, but still, they're not supposed to fly overhead between 10 and I think 5, but do they always happen? I don't know. Temperature. So your ambient temperature is very, very important. And it's much easier for us to sleep in a cooler room. So like 66, 67, 68. It depends on you, what you find comfortable, but the hotter temperature is harder to sleep in, and the cooler temperature is easier to sleep in. Light. And I have this picture of a hospital bed with that bright light right over the patient's head. And that is like one of the worst things. So at St. Charles, we have all these advocacy groups, and we try to make the stay in the hospital as pleasant as possible for the patient. Everybody talks about noise. Everybody talks about the nursing station being quiet at night, so that we don't disrupt the patients. But this is not really addressed very well. So we should actually be giving every patient that comes in, one of these eye shades to help decrease the light. But light, very disturbing. And then electronics. So we are, unfortunately, we're doomed with the electronic age because we're so tied to all our electronic devices. Next. Okay. So I mentioned this already about light, and I briefly mentioned electronics and blue light. So all light suppresses melatonin. Full spectrum, all light suppresses melatonin. But blue light at the approximate 450 nanometer range preferentially suppresses melatonin. And all your devices, electronic devices, whether it's a laptop, whether it's a computer, whether it's your TV, whether it's your phone, they all emit the blue light. And it suppresses melatonin, and it phase delays you. It makes you want to go to bed later and wake up later. So unfortunately, our adolescents, they're tied to their phones, so they sleep with their phones, and that is one of their bad habits that perpetuates their problem falling asleep at night and waking up in the morning, in addition to their normal physiological slight phase delay. Okay, next one. So these are some of the other substances which we all, well, not all love, but most of us, have some caffeine in some form. Some of us don't, but America is a caffeinated society, with Starbucks and coffee shops everywhere. Nicotine disrupts sleep, and alcohol disrupts sleep. So caffeine is a stimulant. And I think everybody has felt it at some point. If you have a little bit too much coffee, you can get very jittery, nervous, heart starts racing. And we have a lot of drinks that have caffeine in our society. So this is your normal cup of coffee. It has about 120, 128 milligrams of caffeine. Some have, more potent, like Starbucks will have 200 milligrams. But there are other drinks, like there's Pepsi's, Coca-Cola's, Propel. There are these monster drinks, these energy drinks, and they have a lot of caffeine in them. And it's important to know that when you drink a cup of coffee, if you're tired and sleepy, it doesn't wake you up right away. It takes like 20 to 30 minutes to kick in. So if you're tired and sleepy and you figure, let me drink this coffee and go on the road, you should wait. You know, you should take a nap. You should drink your coffee. I tell this to the medical students, to take an efficient nap. What you do is you have some caffeine and you take a nap for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And then when the caffeine is kicking in, it helps you wake up and you feel much more energized because you have the caffeine and you've had a nap. So the stimulant effect occurs within 20 to 30 minutes after ingestion, and it can last for 12 hours. So this is very important if you have trouble sleeping. You can't have, if you have trouble sleeping and you're having like a coffee with lunch or some iced tea with lunch, that can interfere with your sleep time. You know, so if you had that iced tea at noon, it's still in your system by midnight. And it's very little, but you know, it's still in your system. And if you're having trouble sleeping, you know, you should avoid that. You could have that cup of coffee in the morning. Okay, how does caffeine do this? It decreases your total sleep time. So if you have like if you have caffeine with dinner, it's going to make it much harder for you to fall asleep. So it decreases your total sleep time, and it also decreases your deep sleep. Okay. Nicotine, you know, it's not very fashionable now to smoke, but it's extremely fashionable for adolescents to vape. And it's unfortunately the same thing. And as the years go by, with the vaping data coming in, vaping is very dangerous. It's as dangerous, if not worse, for your lungs because they have all these perfumes and these additives in the, you know, the smoke. And it's also a stimulant. So nicotine in any form is a stimulant. So cigarettes, e-cigarettes, snuff, all nicotine can interfere with sleep. And you shouldn't smoke, you shouldn't vape. It's bad for your health. It raises risk of cancer. It raises your risk of chronic lung disease. So you shouldn't smoke at all. But if someone is, you know, a smoker, like a serious smoker, if they don't have their cigarette before they go to bed, they'll have a hard time falling asleep. They'll feel anxious and nervous, and the nicotine will actually calm them down. You know, so I'm not saying you should smoke. I think it's a bad idea, but it's a stimulant. It interferes in general with sleep. But a smoker has to like have a cigarette before bedtime to just calm them down because they're addicted. So they're feeling the withdrawal if they don't have that cigarette. Okay. Smoking causes reduced sleep efficiency, so you don't sleep as soundly, you wake up a lot. It decreases your deep sleep, it suppresses your REM, it causes daytime sleepiness, and of course all the cardiovascular and the pulmonary problems associated with it. Okay, next. So alcohol. So a lot of times, you know, you're worried about something, or it's just been like 3 nights and you can't sleep and you gotta get to sleep and you have to go to work. And so you figure, okay, let me just have a glass of whatever it is. Let me have a glass of wine. Let me have a couple of glasses of wine. Let me have, you know, some vodka or gin or whatever, just to unwind, to relax me, because, you know, I'm upset about whatever is going on. So let me have this little nightcap. And that's one of the worst things that you could do for insomnia. It's true that alcohol will relax you, but alcohol very much fragments sleep. So you'll fall asleep a little bit faster, but then the quality of your sleep is going to be very fragmented. You're going to have less of that slow wave sleep that you need, that deep restorative sleep. You're going to have less of this REM. So, and alcohol can last in your system, you know, 4 hours, 5 hours. As the alcohol wears off towards the morning, you're going to have more REM rebound. So you're going to have more vivid dreams and you can have more nightmares if you start, you know, like treating your insomnia with alcohol. So it's not a good idea to try to help your sleep by having a drink or a couple, because eventually you develop a tolerance to the amount that you're drinking and you have to increase the amount. And then that doesn't work anymore. And now you have to have 4 glasses of wine, and then that doesn't work, and it's 5 glasses, and now you have a drinking problem on top of your insomnia. Okay, I mentioned about the exercise and sleep, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but exercise is fantastic, aerobic exercise is fantastic, but you should do it approximately 4 hours prior to bedtime if you can. And if you can't do 4, then a minimum of 2 hours. But that's what you want to do. You want to exercise during the day, you want to do aerobic exercise, but not close to bedtime. Taking a leisurely walk after dinner is fine, absolutely fine, but not the intense workouts. Next. Okay. So these are some of the lifestyle factors. These are some of the things that we also do that makes our sleep poor. Poor sleep habits. So, getting up at the wrong time, getting up on Saturday, Sunday at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, on the other days, Monday through Friday, getting up at 5 o'clock. So we are constantly shifting our circadian rhythm, all the other hormones get out of whack, so we don't feel well. The irregular sleep-wake schedule, that's sometimes part of work, like shift work. Some people, like the ER doctors, so they work 12-hour shifts. And so for 1 week they're on days, the next week they're on nights. The next week they're on days. So they're constantly rotating shifts. Very bad for their sleep, and it's actually bad for their body and their health. Jet lag, so we do that to ourselves. It's a pleasant thing, but we do disrupt our circadian rhythm that way. Okay, and then we have the internal things, our sleep disorders that we may or may not know that we have. So very common, obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. That's the condition where people snore, their airway relaxes a little bit too much when they're sleeping. They could partially block their airway, their oxygen drops, they have to wake up multiple times to breathe fully. But the thing is, they don't know they're doing it because they're sleeping through it. But the bed partner usually notices that something is not right, that they're snoring or they're gasping or they're choking, but the person doesn't think they have a problem, except they don't feel so great. They wake up tired, they're sleepy during the day, they can't concentrate so well, but they're not aware of what they're doing at night. Restless leg syndrome, the person knows, and that's a condition where when they sit still, especially when they're lying down to go to bed at night, they cannot keep their feet still. Their legs are jumping, twitching, they have to toss and turn, shake those legs, rub those legs. And eventually they get up, walk around, and when they get up and walk around, miraculously this discomfort in their legs goes away. They go back to bed to lie down and they get that antsy legs. Periodic limb movements, they occur while the person is sleeping. The person doesn't know what's going on. The bed partner knows, and they're twitching and kicking rhythmically. And that could cause little awakenings, but the person doesn't know why. They usually feel that they're tired and sleepy during the day. Narcolepsy, everybody knows about narcolepsy, but it's a rare condition. It's 0.01% of the population, whereas like sleep apnea is, it's approaching 12% now because of our obesity problem in the United States. So sleep apnea, if you gain weight, you gain fat in the back of the throat, and it raises your risk for sleep apnea. So this is common. Restless legs, it's about 8 to 10% of periodic limb movements, 8 to 10% of the population. Narcolepsy, very rare, genetic disorder. Everybody knows about it because it's so profound. In narcolepsy, the individual is very sleepy, and they could fall asleep talking to you, eating in a restaurant. So it's a very dramatic presentation. Parasomnias are things, quote unquote, that go bump in the night. So parasomnias are sleepwalking, sleep talking, acting out your dreams, night terrors in children. So these are abnormal presentations that occur during sleep. And then insomnia is the most common sleep disorder. And insomnia affects at least a third of our population. And post-pandemic, it's bordering on 50%. So the pandemic very much affected people's sleep. Teenagers, adults, everybody. Okay, so let's talking about pandemic and sleep and insomnia and stress. So we're all stressed in a variety of different ways. Everyone has something that they're concerned about. And stress affects sleep and plays a major role in triggering and perpetuating insomnia. So if anybody's been worried about something, they know that it's very hard to get it off their mind when they're in bed and everything is quiet. And that's when the brain starts going. During the day, you may be busy, you may be distracted, and so you're not thinking that much about whatever it is, or even if you were, you're still functional. But when the lights go out, it's nighttime, and there's no distraction, that's when the brain can really start going, when you have a stressor. And it can cause and perpetuate insomnia. So our state of mind and our physical state can either help our sleep or it can worsen our sleep. So if we are in a state of relaxation, that will help us sleep. It will also physically help us. Because as we know now, stress drives inflammation, stress drives heart attacks, stress worsens chronic illnesses, stress worsens autoimmune conditions like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. So stress is a biggie. And there are behavioral modification things that you could do, some of which I will show you, that you could learn in 2 minutes, that you could do to help reduce your stress, especially at night when you're trying to fall asleep. Okay. So these are some of the tips. The first tip, I don't know if you can see this, but it says keep technology out of your bedroom, and in addition to unplugging from technology, in addition to keeping the technology out of your bedroom, unplug at least 1 hour before bedtime. So don't watch TV, don't watch the nightly news, which is horrible, with everything that's going on. Don't take your phone into bed and, read on your phone. All these things that we do now, because it's such an electronic age. Unplug. It's much better for your nervous system and also for your sleep. And let's say you can't or don't want to do that. This image here of these amber-colored glasses, those amber-colored glasses are called blue light blocking glasses. So they block that blue light that's emitted from our electronics. And so if you don't want to or can't unplug, then at least put the glasses on so that you minimize the light exposure. Good sleep hygiene, this is like what your mother, your grandmother would have told you, or your father, or your grandfather would have told you, and it's very common sense stuff. So the first one, create a comfortable, dark, quiet, cool, and safe sleep environment. If it's noisy, you're going to have trouble sleeping. If you're unsafe, if you feel unsafe, that you can't relax, you'll have trouble sleeping. So your sleep environment has to be comfortable, quiet, and safe. Sleep on a comfortable mattress and pillow. And I don't recommend any particular mattresses or pillows, whatever feels best for you. Some people like a softer mattress, some people like a firmer mattress. In general, if you have back trouble, a firmer mattress is better, but it has to be comfortable, otherwise you're not going to sleep well. Standardize your wake and bedtime. The wake time is the driver, so if you need to get up 8 o'clock every Monday through Friday, you have to get up 8 o'clock Saturday and Sunday. If you have to get up 6 o'clock Monday through Friday, you have to get up 6 o'clock Saturday and Sunday, and regulate your bedtime based on your wake time. This is very important. The next one, establish a regular, relaxing bedtime routine. We don't do that. We tend to, especially if you're working, you tend to zip, 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 zip through the day. You come home. If you've got kids, you got to do that, you got to do this, and then, oh my God, it's like 11:30, 12 o'clock, you got to go to bed. Brush your teeth, go to bed. You didn't have any wind down time. It's very important to have wind down time. So a regular, relaxing bedtime routine. Go to bed when you're sleepy. Some of us are not sleepy at 10 o'clock at night. Don't go to bed. We'll spend an hour tossing and turning, perpetuating insomnia. Go to bed when you're sleepy. Sleepy means you're yawning. Sleepy means you're reading something and your head is going like this and you keep on reading the same sentence over and over. That's sleepy. That's when you go to bed. Limit the amount of time awake in bed. The longer you stay awake in bed, the more you perpetuate associating the bed with wakefulness. That's not what you want to do. You want to limit the amount of time in bed so that you could sleep the majority of the time. This way you reassociate the bed with sleeping and not with staying awake and frustration. Avoid looking at the clock after going to bed. That clock is a little trigger. It's like, uh-oh, I wonder what time it is. I wonder how long I've been tossing and turning. It's 1 o'clock. Okay, well, I gotta get up at 6. I still have 5 hours left. 3 o'clock. Oh my God, this is it. I'm not falling asleep. I can't go. I've got 3 hours. Up the rest of the night. So looking at that clock just reinforces, oh my God, the anxiety wells up and keeps you from going to sleep. So you set the alarm for whatever time you have to get up in the morning, and you don't, you get up and you look at the clock when it goes off, when the alarm goes off. In the meantime, you don't stay in bed too long. We'll go over that in just a second. Restrict your bedroom for sleep and intimacy. So you don't have your phone calls in there, you don't have your arguments in there, you don't do your bills in there, you don't eat on the bed with your dog or cat or whatever it is. So it's just for sleep and intimacy, that bedroom. Avoid exercise 3 to 4 hours before bedtime. I mentioned that. Limit napping unless you're a shift worker or elderly. So we want to have that nap at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And if you have the luxury to have a nap at around 3 o'clock, it could be between 2 and 4, but not later than 4. If you could have a nap for half an hour, even an hour, that's a good thing. If your life permits it, many societies have a siesta. That's normal. We're just driven. We're American, we can just power through everything. But our body wants us to have that little sleep. So unless you're having insomnia, you could indulge and have a little nap. If you're having trouble falling asleep at night, taking that nap might interfere with your ability to fall asleep easily. And then this is easy. You reduce or eliminate nicotine, caffeine, and alcohol. Food. So there's certain foods that make you drowsy and certain foods that keep you neutral. Carbs make you drowsy. So if you want to fall asleep after lunch, have a pasta, like a pasta salad or a big bowl of macaroni or potatoes or something. Bagels, that's going to make you fall asleep. If you need to stay alert for lunch and after lunch, then have something that's higher in proteins and fats and vegetables along with that. Other soporific foods are foods that are rich in tryptophan. So all the dairy products are rich in tryptophan. Turkey's rich in tryptophan. Foods that are rich in calcium. So again, you've got your dairy products that are rich in calcium and foods rich in magnesium. So magnesium would be things like Brazil nuts, for example. So this is just an example of some of the L-tryptophan or the tryptophan-rich foods. And many foods have tryptophan. It's not just that turkey has tryptophan or bananas have tryptophan. They just have a little bit more than other foods. So if you need a snack at night, a nice thing would be half a banana, or believe it or not, some popcorn, or a peanut butter, like half a peanut butter sandwich, or a slice of turkey or a glass of warm milk. So all that stuff has rationale. It actually has physical rationale why it would help you. And then these are some herbs. And I'm not saying that you should go out and get valerian root, but valerian root is over the counter and it's an herb that is very relaxing. And then there's chamomile, which is very soothing also, and lavender, not to drink, but to smell. There is aromatherapy. I'm just going to intervene with something totally not related. But there was this research that was done about, 3 months ago or so, about aromatherapy and cognitive enhancement. And so they took individuals who had cognitive decline and normals, and they split them into different groups. And the bottom line is, they gave them scents to smell while they were sleeping. And so if they were exposed to lavender, if they were exposed to mint, if they were exposed to lemon balm, their cognition improved. It was really fascinating. So, people talk about aromatherapy, and it sounds like new agey, and it sounds flaky, but there's something to be said to it or about it. Okay, relaxation therapy, stress. I'm going to zip through this. There are many different things you could do to unwind. But you need to unwind a little bit, even if it's like 15 minutes before you go to bed to unwind. Deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, creative visualization, meditation, soothing sounds, background music. Yoga is really good for stress reduction. I mentioned the exercise, and there's biofeedback, neurofeedback, and self-hypnosis. We could switch. Okay. So bedtime routine. So if you can, if you have the luxury 30 to 60 minutes to just sit down, and you could listen to music, or you could have a bubble bath, or just sit and close your eyes and meditate a little bit. Go through what you would like or what you're grateful for. There are many things that you could do to unwind. So here is soothing music, read a motivational book, listen to an ebook with your eyes closed, take a warm bath, utilize aromatherapy, lavender especially, and of course avoid the electronics and blue light. This is a technique for deep breathing, so I'm going to teach you this in just like 3 seconds. So deep breathing. When we breathe deeply, we oxygenate our whole body and our brain. And a fully oxygenated brain is a calmer brain. And so when we get anxious and we have a panic attack, if you notice or if you know anybody who's anxious, they shallow breathe. You see them do this? And in a panic attack, they can barely catch their breath. It's so shallow. So breathing deeply relaxes us. So this little slide, what it shows is you breathe in through your nose on a count of 3, slow. You breathe out on a count of like 6 through pursed lips. Then you do it again. Breathe in through the nose. Pursed lips, breathe out. One more time. Breathe in, count to 3, through the nose. Breathe out, pursed lips. I'm going to stop at 3 because you'll fall asleep. So you do this like a cycle of 5, but it's so easy. You know, it's so easy. You just have to remember 3 to 6. The exhalation is always longer than inhalation. So you could do this when you're lying in bed. You could do it when you're stressed about something. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be going to bed to do this. Progressive muscle relaxation. It's also very simple. It takes about 5 minutes to go through. Oops. It takes about 5 minutes to go through the whole thing. I'm going to do it very quickly. So with progressive muscle relaxation, you start with your toes. You curl your toes under. You like squish your toes. You can do it in your shoes. And you focus on the tension for 3 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, and then you relax. And you focus on the relaxation for 3 seconds. And then you're going to be lying in bed on your back. So then you're going to do your calves. So to do your calves, you have to bring your foot up to tighten your calves. I can't do both because I'll fall. But count 3, 1, 2, 3, and then you relax the legs. And you feel the relaxation in your calves. Then you tighten your thighs. You straighten your knees, count 3 seconds, and then relax 3 seconds. Then you do your belly, you do your buttocks, you do your hands, you do your biceps. To do triceps, you just push into the bed like this, into the mattress. That'll tighten your triceps and relax. And then you're going to do your neck to the center, then all the way to the right, 3 seconds, then down to the center, then all the way to the left, 3 seconds of tightness, and then to the center. Clench your jaw for 3 seconds, close your eyes for 3 seconds, and then relax 3 seconds, and then raise your eyebrows, and you're done. So it takes a few minutes. I just rush through it, but it's very simple. It's very simple. So the first one, with the breathing, it just oxygenates your whole body and relaxes you. The second one with the tension relaxation, it gets some of that tension out of your body. I forgot to tell you, you have to shrug your shoulders up before you do the neck. We carry a lot of tension in our shoulders, so all the way up to the ears, and then you drop them down. Okay. Creative visualization is a fancy term for daydreaming. And you've done your breathing, you've done your progressive muscle relaxation, and now you turn over into the most comfortable position, and you pick a scene that you find soothing, safe, and relaxing. So it could be like this person is, on summer vacation looking at the clouds. Somebody else might be at the seaside. Somebody else might be in the forest with a babbling brook. Somebody else might be after skiing in the ski lounge, sitting on a bear rug or something, watching the crackling fire. So whatever scene you have, it has to be tailored to you, that you find soothing, relaxing, and safe. It has to be safe. It can't be exciting. And you have to focus on it. So when intrusive thoughts come through about whatever you might be concerned about, you actually talk to yourself in your head and you say, no, I'm not going to do that now. I'm not going to think about that. I'm going back to my fireplace, or I'm going back to my babbling brook, or whatever. Okay? Very easy to do, and you just redirect your brain. Next, Jennifer. Meditations, there are many forms of different meditation. I can't teach you any meditation, but it is a wonderful thing. Even practicing mindfulness, like being present in the moment, hearing what's around you, feeling what you feel in your body. Very, very helpful. Next one. Yoga, again, very good. The tension is released from your body. I mean, you could actually introduce yourself with the yoga, some of the poses, but in general, yoga is very good. Biofeedback, you can skip this. Neurofeedback. These are more sophisticated techniques that you would need assistance with a psychologist usually. And biofeedback and neurofeedback are mechanisms where you have sensors placed on your scalp and on your body, and when your blood pressure goes up, when your heart rate goes up, you get feedback, usually in either sounds or visual, like different color changes, so you learn to understand what your body is doing. Because some of us don't feel stressed, but we're extremely stressed. And with stress, your blood pressure goes up, your heart rate goes up, your skin, galvanic skin response changes too. So it teaches you to be more in tune with your body, but that's a more sophisticated thing. CBTI is cognitive behavioral therapy. I is insomnia. So this is a very commonly practiced behavioral modification for insomnia. So it's usually done by psychologists, it's done by social workers, and it helps you retrain your thinking about sleep. It helps reduce your anxiety about sleep, and it teaches you better habits to help improve your sleep. So it's a wonderful, wonderful tool for individuals who have trouble sleeping. And it does not require medications. This is medication-free. Okay, next. So we're coming to the end. We're almost done. I'm almost done. So practicing good sleep habits, combining the relaxation techniques, and combining behavioral changes and aspects of the cognitive behavioral therapy yields the best results for restful sleep. So, you have to be active in protecting your sleep. And let's say you've done everything. Your sleep hygiene is so good, you're not drinking alcohol, you're not drinking caffeine. Well, sometimes we have sleep disorders. So even though you're doing everything you're supposed to, you're still not sleeping well. At that point, you should speak to your physician and see what he or she says, and whether you might need to have a referral to a sleep center. So a sleep specialist will evaluate you if we see that the insomnia has been present for more than 1 month. That's trouble falling asleep or staying asleep or waking up much too early, if that's been there for 1 month or more. If you're very sleepy, even though you slept your 7 hours or 8 hours or 9 hours, that's not normal, if you're very sleepy. And then if you have like snoring or gasping or choking, and we think you might have sleep apnea, that's not normal. Or if you're kicking and twitching at night, that's not normal. Narcolepsy, that's pretty dramatic. That's like falling asleep inappropriately all the time with some other symptoms. Or if you're an adult and you started sleepwalking or acting out your dreams. Children can have night terrors, sleepwalking, and they tend to outgrow it. At times of increased stress, they may redo those behaviors. But if those behaviors start when you're an adult, we think more along the lines of maybe seizures. So it's an important thing to come and get evaluated. We monitor sleep with putting on different electrodes. Nothing is invasive. Nothing pierces the skin. So I have a picture of a little girl here so that you can see she could do it, so you could do it. It's not so bad. These are all superficial electrodes. These are electrodes on the legs. We monitor the brain waves. We monitor eye movements for rapid eye movement sleep. We monitor muscle tone for rapid eye movement sleep because the muscle tone is very low. During rapid eye movement sleep, we monitor the heart rate, EKG, the legs for the twitches, oxygen level, and pretty much that's it. So about 20 sensors get applied externally. Next one. And this is what it would look like. So this gentleman came in for a sleep study, and so he's got these little stickies, these little sensors. He's got these 2 chest belts on his abdomen. The sleep sensors, this is not ours. Ours doesn't have a beautiful headboard, but the sleep sensors are pretty nice. They're pretty comfortable. And usually you have your own bathroom. There's something other than coming into a sleep test, into the sleep lab, that's a home test. So if we think someone has pretty severe apnea, we're pretty convinced that's what we're going to find, we could order a home test. And a home test doesn't have all the stuff on the head and the face and on the legs. It only monitors airflow. So I don't know if you can see this gentleman over here has a little airflow sensor. He does too. This is very difficult to see on this, but you can see this easier. This is a pulse oximeter. This is a chest belt and a belly belt to tell us how hard you're trying to breathe. So that's a home sleep test. And that's pretty much it. So in conclusion, I'll just read our most important points. Sleep is a basic biological need that's essential to our optimal functioning. We've always known about diet and exercise. Sleep is now part of that triad, finally, and even in America. And establishing healthy sleep practices helps prevent sleep problems and promotes optimal sleep and health. Don't go to bed with your phone and skip the nightcap. Those are like main messages. The electronics are a real problem. And stress. Stress can play a major role in triggering and perpetuating insomnia. And we could do things to help minimize our stress. And it's just important to know that our state of mind can either enhance our sleep or disturb our sleep. And we could do a lot about it. There's behavioral modification that we could engage in, stress reduction, relaxation techniques, which can improve our sleep. And once we improve our sleep, we feel better. It improves our overall well-being. And finally, that's my favorite line, sleep disorders are treatable. And that's one of the reasons why I went into sleep medicine, because it's a very gratifying subspecialty. So thank you very much for your attention. If you have questions, I'll take questions. Now, before the questions, I gave you 2 questionnaires. So let me explain them to you. The first one is the Epworth Sleep